Not quite close enough. Will he get the power down on that Suzuki at the end of the straight?
No! It did a touch.
No, Villopoto, whiskey throttle, wheeled all the way across, and he is down, he's hurt. He just came over the jump, he wheeled down the straight.
So welcome back to Europe, Ryan.
Thank you.
Tell us about that crash and what you remember.
I don't know. It was definitely something that was weird. It basically happened so quickly. I don't really know exactly what happened. Obviously, in the midst of a battle, and ended up. I don't really know exactly what happened. Made a mistake purely.
Yeah. Do you think it was also a little bit with the terrain? The bike seemed to hook up really strangely.
Yeah,
hey?
I think no. I mean, I wouldn't say anything. I landed off the jump there, off that single. Suspension went down and it came back up, and it just everything happened just perfectly. So it was it was definitely a bummer.
It looked really kind of confusing and painful, and you looked.
Well, when I got up, it was I was in some pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a bang to the head and winded, or
No,
or just
more just everything was fine with my head. Just like took a big almost like knocked the wind out of you.
Yeah.
Made my my whole lower area hurt pretty bad.
Yeah. So tell us about the subsequent injury then that you sustained.
Yeah, so it was basically just I hit the ground really really hard with my ass, and then that goes up into your lower back and things like that. So broke the tailbone in 4 places. It took it and put it into 4 spots, so or 4 pieces. So that in itself took a little while to heal. And after a while it still was giving me some problems, and realistically we had to sit down and say, like, okay, well, I was off the bike for a certain amount of time, and at minimum you need that much time, if not longer, to come back and race at this level, at this high level. So with the time that it did go quiet for a while, but we were trying to figure out where things were and how much time was going to be left, and where we're what decisions to make. And after a while, it was like, okay, well, this is with my trainer Eldon and myself and everybody else involved. You're like, okay, well, this is the window's closing. So we made a decision. It wasn't as quick as people would have liked, but there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of major, my personal major big sponsors that we had to go to individually and talk to them about a decision like that. So, I'm happy with the decision. I said before the season had started, this will be my last go at racing, or my last season, win or lose. So it didn't end up as we all would have liked it, but it was a good experience while it lasted.
And during that time when you're kind of undecided and you're needing to speak with Alden and make your decisions, is that a really difficult time? Because I guess the phone's ringing a lot and you don't really have an answer.
Yeah, it's with an injury like that, it's kind of, it's almost like, so for instance, I've done knee surgery 3 times. And they say, hey, listen, you're gonna feel like you might be okay to do much more than you can, but you're gonna have to hold yourself back. So it's like one of those deals where it's my sweatshirt's in here. It's gonna take you a little time to to be able to come back. So I was almost like, okay, yeah, I feel okay here, but then okay, I got to be careful here. So people are gonna think or say what they want to say, and that's fine. Nobody was living it except for me.
Exactly. In the end, people talk about everything and anything.
You're never going to keep
life.
Everybody happy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What kind of treatment did you have for the injury, or was it rest, or was there also some little compressed vertebrae as well? Or
yeah, there was some soft tissue damage around I believe it was the lower part of L4 and L5, I believe. So just did tissue work and work with chiropractor and obviously time, so we were able to get it, able to even still today, if I sit on a hard chair not being aware of it, or if I sit for a while in a hard chair and then get up right away, I can still feel the effects from it. So they said that'll last a year, So it is what it is. We did what we could. Did the therapy and things like that, and in the end, it wasn't, wasn't going to be good enough.
You mentioned just a little bit with regard to that crash, that maybe you got a little bit of I can't remember how you put it, but maybe the bike.
Well, I think everything just worked perfect. Where I jumped off the jump, the suspension landed, and then it came
It
up
recoiled,
as I was on the gas and going,
Yeah.
kind of like a perfect storm thing.
Yeah.
Everything just clicked off, and I wasn't ready for it. It happened so quickly that before I knew it, it was kind of over. It was upside down.
Yeah. What I was leading on to a little bit was bike setup. How difficult was it for you to come to Europe with a lifetime of American philosophy on bike setup?
It's looking back on it now. It's definitely we kind of knew it was going to be a big undertaking. I don't think anybody knew that it was going to be on our side that it was going to be so different. They're not any better over here than we are in the States, and we're not any better than they are, vice versa. So it's just a total different lifestyle and racing, and the tracks develop differently. So we could take any one of these Euro guys, and most of them, probably wouldn't make a few laps around a Supercross track. So it's just it's just that different. So not any one person's better than another. You might have, some of the French riders tend to ride Supercross better than most, but bottom line is there's not a whole lot of Euros that head that way, because it's tough, it's difficult, it's very different, and vice versa. There's not many Americans that come this way.
So you're mentioning sort of Supercross there a lot. Does that mean that your bike setup, even for AMA Nationals, was actually a similar setup to your Supercross setup?
Oh, it's totally different. Meaning, what I was saying about the tracks developing different is we have massive braking bumps coming in the turns, and you guys have massive acceleration bumps coming out of the turns. So it's flip flopped. You have some braking bumps, but most of the big stuff you set your bike up is for acceleration bumps, and that I found. Yes, the track is rough all over, but it's a lot of more small choppy or big chop, so to say. So it's a total different bike setup for sure.
Did you find did you start to find decent setups?
I think there at Italy we had made some changes during the week, and we had 3 good starts that weekend, and was feeling pretty well. I think at that particular track, I think that nobody thought I was going to be very up front. It is one of the, from what I'd heard, one of the more technical tracks, or one of the more slippery tracks, so to say, and we were right there with the front guys, racing for the top 3. So I think that was a lot of people were surprised in that itself.
Mm-hmm. And how was it then fitting into the new team environment?
It was tough. Because the reason why I say it was tough is because I'd been with only one team. Yeah, I rode for Mitch on a lights team, but that was only that lights team. I was there for my whole lights career, and then I was at Factory Cowie for my whole 450 career. So being that I was only with 2 teams my entire career, coming to a different team was a learning curve in itself.
So I think when any of us see a sportsman such as you at your level, I think everyone assumes that you're invincible and unbeatable, or even other riders at your level or a similar level. But how did that feel? I apologize in advance. It's a question you've probably asked a million times before. But how did it feel coming to Europe and then suddenly being faced with almost like a very difficult challenge to fathom, and getting beaten in the early I mean, okay, you started to chip away, and
I've been beaten a lot of different places. I've won a lot of championships also. You're never going to win every race. So, you know, um, losing is part of the game as well as winning. So the year didn't turn out like we would have liked it to. It kind of looks like that for everybody at this point.
Yep.
But that's just the way it is. It's at first it's a bit, at first it's a big, bummer, right after it happened. But you get over it. As a racer, there's ups and downs and valleys and peaks and you ride the wave when the wave is bitching, and when it's no good, you make do with that. And that was one of the things. I've had knee surgery 3 times. Some of them in the midst of a season, some of them right before a season. So it's injuries all part of the game. And it's like I said, it's ups and downs, and you take it for what they are. And when the times are good, you high five your team and you love it. And when times are bad, that's just the way it is. Those are the cards that we were all dealt. So, I coming over here looking at it, it wasn't being like, oh my God, I got beat at this race and I got beat at this race. Yeah, I won this my second GP. So being that it was just a short go at it, I think I fared well. And the only way you can ever, if anybody wants to think otherwise or talk otherwise, just flip the situation and go to the U.S. and go ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So clearly, I guess people before you left the States, maybe you had an idea that there might be an element of kind of culture shock, living a lifetime in the States, racing in US races, and then suddenly here we go in Europe. Was it the culture shock? What was it?
It was a little bit of everything. Yeah, it was different. Living here and some of the travels to the first couple overseas ones. So just all I can say is everything about it was different. And not one thing in particular was like, wow, that was the killer right there. Everything was just different.
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't say it was like, oh, hugely, but it was, every little thing adds up.
I heard that you were quite wowed by Thailand and the sights and sounds and smells and so on there.
Yeah, no, Thailand was really cool. It was cool to see that I think that and Argentina were the 2 really cool ones to go to.
I read last night on the internet that Alden said the more you can keep the change as small as possible, the better. Relating to
with
you,
any athlete.
Okay. Yeah.
That is, you have a routine. Say if it's a swimmer, if it's Phelps, he has his routine, he has his training, he eats the way he eats. It's that goes for any athlete, any high level top athlete that. They have a routine, and if you have a good trainer that you're with, and he knows that routine, he sticks and keeps you on that, it helps big time. And I was with Eldon for pretty much 4 or 5 years straight, so we had a really good routine back in the States. But that's a very normal or very everything's always the same. We ride Monday, we do this, blah, 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 blah. It's pretty, the routine was the same a lot. Over here, it was like, okay, well, shit, we got to drive 6 hours to France because it's raining here. Or we got to go find a hard packed track. So we go to 6 hours, south. So it was always very, very different, from week to week to week. So that was, as the routine, as staying in focused on one thing and keeping it the same. It never was over here. But that's part of the game over here. That's the way it is. And these riders are used to that.
How did it work with Alden? Was the communication still working okay? Got time zone differences.
Yeah, I mean
and
that
stuff
obviously.
like that,
Yeah, I mean the time zone difference. Yeah, it's different. We talked things like that, but it's never like being with somebody every day.
I guess that because you've been with him for so long too, you've absorbed a lot of what you need to do.
It is. It helped, but yes and no. I mean, you gotta. His program is always evolving. His program never stayed the same. I never did. From the first year with him to the fourth to my last year with him, it was a completely different program. You know, from gym workouts to the amount of this to the amount of that, more cycling than riding or more riding than cycling. It's just always evolving on the rider.
The questions are jumping around a little bit, but after those first initial races, then did you have any second thoughts, or were you just still, yep, okay?
No, it is what it was, you know, like, yeah, Qatar didn't go as planned. There's races in the States that didn't go as planned. You know,
Qatar's weird.
I didn't plan on, you know, falling in Seattle that whatever year it was and tearing my ACL.
Yeah.
You know, so nothing's planned, you know. So it like I said, it is racing is what it is, and things happen.
You were learning though, hey, because let's talk about Thailand just for a second, because you won there, but you won race 1 and got third in race 2, but you won the qualifying race by 33.419 seconds.
Yeah.
Did you push too hard in that qualifying race?
I don't know. I mean, I was still adjusting to the 2-day program. We haven't had a 2-day program in a long time back in the States. So I was adjusting to that. And sure, I was you know, probably could have done some things differently. For the second moto. You know, in Thailand, but you know.
Did you? I mean, of course, you know, nobody can understand who wasn't there and wasn't doing what you guys were doing. The heat and humidity.
The heat was hot. It definitely was hot. I've raced in hotter, but I've raced in hotter also, but being used to it, meaning, you know, most of us came from here, Belgium area, I would assume. There's a lot of teams around here, so I would assume most of us came from here, and we were still riding in sweatshirts. So It's the shock factor that you go from one temperature to another, you know. But I've trained in hotter and raced in hotter, and won in hotter. But you know, but I've been used to it, and I was staying in Florida, which is very hot, and we'll go to a hot race, so it's the same. You know, it's that thing Eldon was talking about. You know, the least amount of shock that you can have, the better.
So, Cairoli out, Nargil out, DeSalle out. Jeez, I guess you're as surprised as anybody of how this season just seems to have.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, once again, it's racing.
Yeah.
You know, I would tell anybody, I think, you know, from racing over here now, and we could ride on a smooth track, we could ride on asphalt, and you're gonna probably have really close to the same results as if it's a rough track or a sand or this or that or whatever. Yeah, occasionally it goes up and down, but you know, I think that track prep could be a little bit better, which would make racing better, which would in return probably be a little safer also. You know, so it's an ever evolving thing.
Yeah, you did in the end actually get to ride on some quite gnarly tracks. It would have been great for you to experience some of the other tracks that were on offer, that's for sure. So let's talk about statistics for a moment, because the statistics, as far as I remember reading about you in the past, you're not someone who's big on, you know, I got so many championships and stuff like that. Was that something that, is that true? Or if it is it something that you didn't want to get involved with because it helps to just sort of relieve that pressure of having to chase?
No, I mean, motorcycles have been in my family my grandpa still rides, my dad rides, and it was a hobby we did. You know, it started off as a kind of like a hobby, and we did it, and I happened to be halfway decent at it and got better, and mom and dad took me to races, and it was just something that we did. I know there's some guys out there that watch certain things and, you know, be like, hey, mom and dad, I want to do that. This is what I'm going to be. You know, that wasn't me. So, you know, you know, I can look back and see what I've done. I've, you know, done a lot, you know, been really good in the sport. The sport's been really good to me. But, you know, there's a whole motorcycles is something I you know, I did or do, but that's not my life. There's a lot of people out there that this is their life that revolves around this, and they have a goal, and that one goal is they won't stop till they can, you know, they win a championship. And once they do, then their lifelong goal is fulfilled. That's not me. Never has been. It's been something that I did. That was my job. So, sure, there's times that it's been really good. There's times it's been really bad. I'll always ride, but it's not. I don't look at it as like it's all or nothing. That's not my life. It's something that I did.
Yep. I really want to come back to that. We don't have that much time, but I do want to talk a bit more about you and what makes you tick. But what about how do you reckon Ricky and Jeremy McGrath rate you? Have you any idea? You hang out with those guys?
No, I mean, I think any one person that to win a Supercross race is huge. To win one championship is big. In any class, so it takes dedication. I don't know how they rate me. I don't want to say I don't care, but everybody has their own opinion, and some people like me, some people don't. Some people were never a fan of me, and so on. That's the way it's gonna be.
Yeah. How do you rate them?
I always looked up to MC, like when I was, because he was the guy. I'd go to Supercross. Used to come to Seattle when I was a kid. We'd go there. And that's who we'd watch as McGrath. I don't consider. I won't sit here and say, well, Ricky's the greatest of all time. Give him that and solely put him as that. He was one of the greatest of all time, and MC the same.
Yep.
Great. In their own way, a little different eras and so on, and that's why it goes on down the list. There's some guys, Ricky was amazing at outdoors. Probably one of the best guys ever to do outdoors. But as a whole, if you can win, if you've done anything what MC's done, if you've done anything that Ricky's done, it's those are huge accomplishments in themselves.
Yeah. What about James Stewart? Maybe an unfulfilled potential there. I mean, an incredible rider in so many regards, but yet, what are your thoughts about James?
I don't know. I think that's a question that people are asking or journalists ask or say, well, unfilled this and that, and it's like, okay, well, why don't you put the shoes or the boots on another foot? Why aren't you doing it? Because you can't. So it's just a bummer to see someone call somebody out that can barely ride down the road or can't even make a lap around Lommel. I get it. Like definitely he's could be probably the best if say he put his head down to it and did what he had to do and so on. But that's the way it goes, Yeah. That's what makes, different riders great and at different times and so on. It's just that's how you have different personalities and different people and so on. You have different riders and so on. It's just the way it is, So I think anybody that wants to call anybody out that's at our level, why don't you go do it? And why don't they go do it and then see how it is for themselves?
Sure. Is there any way you can put anything into words as to exactly what it is that that drives a guy like you to reach those levels?
I mean, as a kid, it was always like, my dad was always, pushing me. And I think there becomes sure, there's a point in time where I get old enough, I can make my own decision and be like, okay, well, I don't really want to ride, or I do, or you kind of look at it that way, I guess. But it kind of happened so quick, where he, I guess I couldn't stop, so to say. Even if they had invested a lot of money, even if I wanted to, I had asking the question. I've never, not that I ever thought back then. I was like, geez, I'm gonna stop racing. When I was amateur, because it was just something we did. Whoever would have thought I would have made it to here. But I don't know. It was just basically it snowballed, and I was okay at amateurs. I did well, but only they all say, oh, Loretta Lynn's this. I only won one championship. People, Leslie has however many. James has a lot. There's a lot of people that have many, and that was the race. I only won one, and it was my last year. And then I turned pro, and it gained a lot of speed really quickly. And by that time you're 17, and I mean, if you finish school, if you didn't, I didn't, you really have nothing to fall back on. So that's your job. You better make it work. And I always looked at it as my job. Like, what else am I gonna do? What else can I go and do?
Yeah. So as you're getting faster, because I'm always fascinated about this, and I always think about like Formula One drivers, IndyCar. People are going at such a speed. Is that something that you just get used to over time? It's I almost feel like you see things in slow motion. The speed that you're going.
There's days, that you can be like, everything's just clicking.
Yep.
And it's like it is in slow motion.
Yeah.
And there's other days that aren't. So, it's routine. It's riding laps, and training.
Yeah.
To make it the best, to make you the best you can be.
And it just becomes normal.
It eventually becomes, that when the bike does this, you just automatically do that. It just becomes normal.
Yeah. So what is it that makes you tick? What interests you? I've read it before, and I've heard it, you said it before about that this isn't my life. So what's your life? Tell me about your life.
Well, it's been this. I just, meaning that I won't go to. Sure, I'll give it all, and I'll and have sacrificed a lot to be, one of the best. That particularly wasn't the goal. I didn't sit down and say I want to be the best in the world at this, or be one of the best. But for me, there's a whole lot more to than just racing. So I think, to make the decision to stop, it's there's things that I've missed out on. There's things that that I'll be able to go and do now. And number one thing for me is being able to spend time with the rest of my family. Going home when there's things, and there's birthdays, and there's this and there's that, and all the grandkids are growing up and things like that. There's a whole lot more to life than just living on the road and doing this. I set out goals and reached my goals and made good money to be able to stop. So I look at it, quit while you're ahead type of thing.
Yeah. And are you going to miss it? You're going to miss the adrenaline, the fans?
They're always going to miss it. There's always going to be something you miss.
Yeah.
Always.
What you must have felt in those stadiums must have been amazing, huh?
Supercross is a different animal for sure. It's nothing like outdoors or GPs or anything. It's Supercross is cool. You're always going to miss things about it, for sure. I'm going to miss things about it. But then when you look back, you're like, geez, look what I had to do to be that good and to be the guy. You'd be like, okay, well, yeah, that that takes a lot of work, and maybe some people are like, man, I wish I could go back and do that, but now it's too late, type of thing. But I don't think I'm gonna look back and do that, because training was always something that was a little harder for me. That's why I had to hire Eldon and get him in my corner, because to do it solely on my own, it was tough for me.
Do you have any regrets at all? Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, I could have done things differently in some areas, but relatively, my career's been one of the better ones out there. I mean, there's not many guys that can say, okay, well, I solely can just sit back and live my life off of racing, So, I couldn't ask for any more. I'm healthy. It's a dangerous sport, and things can happen even when it's not your fault. So, it's good. I'm happy with the way it turned out. Yeah, sure, anybody could say, okay, I could have done that a bit different. It could have been, but then it could have changed the outcome of some other things.
Yeah. You sound really like you're ready for this now to retire. Do you ever think you would ever think in 3 years, I missed that so much, I might have another go?
No, I think that when you decide to stop, the window shuts very, 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 very quickly in the sport.
Mm.
Because you have to be at such a high level to do it. And if you're not at that, that level, you're just putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
So I think, when you stop, you stop. Unless you come back right away, like a big long injury type of thing, and then come back, then okay. But if you give it 2-3 years to come back, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of you got to be sharp.
And no regrets about this GP decision?
In which regard, coming over here?
Yeah.
No, I think it was good. I've done it and seen what the states have to offer. And won a lot of races, won pretty much every championship there is to win over there. And this was a good go. It was cool to see different things and experience different things over here. I'll still be involved with the teams and my sponsors, with Kawasaki and my sponsors in the States after this is done here. And still be involved with the sport. So I'll I know I'm already getting calls and be like, the guys want me to come down and ride the when I can ride the 16 and start doing some testing and things for them, so I'll be involved and be be around. So it's gonna be good. I feel like I'll be able to experience both sides of it now. The the things that you guys all love about it, seeing all the people and getting to talk and do this and do that and go here and go there and do the riding part of it, instead of being the athlete that's just solely here and you can't see any of this other stuff because it's racing.
Do you reckon you're gonna become a bit of a fan now then?
I mean,
I mean, you already are.
I think you're always a fan.
Yeah.
Or I think or maybe not a fan, but always enjoy watching racing.
I don't know what you experienced in terms of the Europeans' reaction to you coming over.
I think most of it was really good. I know there's a lot of people. Some of the people in the States were bummed to see me go.
Yeah.
My last year, they wish they would have seen me race over there. The last year, but they got to see me race a lot. And they could tune in over here and see me race over here. So
yeah.
I think it was good for both parties, and most of the people over here were pretty, excited.
I think so, really, and I think really anything that may have been said, may not have been said, anything that you felt is probably just. I think people are just so gutted, disappointed that they didn't get to enjoy that clash, and whoever would win, they were just up for some real entertainment,
Yeah, regardless, if I wouldn't have got hurt and Tony gets hurt,
Yeah.
they'll say, "Oh, it wasn't fair. Tony got hurt."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's you're never gonna keep everybody happy, and that's the way it is. And that's, as an athlete, the one that they're all looking at and talking about. You basically just turn your head and be like, "Okay, well, you guys, have no idea what you're talking about. So just go on and just keep speaking shit, and our lives will go on," type
Yeah.
of thing. Because you can't ever keep every single person happy. You got to worry about yourself and keep yourself happy, and make sure you're getting the job done.
Well, Ryan, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Congratulations on
Thank
a
you.
fantastic career.
Thank
It
you.
was a pleasure.